We promised John Thompson, former Georgetown head coach. Coach, kind enough to join us. How are you, Coach?
Terrible. How you doing, Dan?
Terrible.
Yeah, I'm a commentator rather than a daddy watching his son.
At what point did you realize your son's Hoyas were in trouble against Florida Gulf Coast?
When I start seeing Dan that dunk contest going on out on the floor, they're really good though. I mean, they really surprised me. Gulf Coast did because look at Comer is as good as any point guard that I've seen this year. But the thing that surprised me most about that Gulf Coast team was the fact the depth they had. You know, usually a so-called mid-major team may have 4 or 5 good guys that can create a problem for you, but they're not only 5 deep. I mean, they're deep. They're very deep.
If you're looking at styles, though, Coach, it seems like the coaches are the focal point in college basketball, not the players themselves. So it seems like the coaches they're coaching every possession down the floor, whereas Florida Gulf Coast, I didn't get that feeling.
Well, no, and they are, you're exactly right. They get in a groove, and when they get in that groove, it's free-spirited. But you can do that when you have the kind of point guard that they have. I mean, that kid didn't turn the ball over much, and he's making great passes. When he's not in the ball game, they're somewhat of a different kind of team. But if you've got a point guard that can transfer what you want done out on the floor, then you can have a freewheeling team. But if not, you've got to place them in a system and have more control on the team.
Was Iverson the first guy you sort of let freelance like that, or did you have somebody else you let freelance?
Iverson's the only guy I ever let freelance like that because he had that kind of talent. But Iverson had a combination of offensive ability as well as being able to run the team. But Allen was smart enough to know that the play had to be on him 90% of the time and not anybody else, so it became kind of easy to let him do his thing.
I mentioned last hour that about 5 years ago it seemed to change. The mid-major coaches, if you want to label them that, realized we can't do the one and done, so let's get the guys who are there 3 and 4 years. We got security. We can make pretty good money. We can go to the tournament, maybe make a run. And I surprised people when I said Shaka Smart is not going to go to UCLA. He's got a great situation there. But is it 5 years ago that you think it changed, or was it earlier or later than that you saw these coaches saying, Mark Few staying at Gonzaga, you got Stevens at Butler staying, that security is there?
Well, and I think you're 100% correct. And I saw where Shaka turned down, I guess, the UCLA situation and staying at VCU. And from a talent standpoint, you know this, Dan, as well as I do, because of the fact that so many people are leaving, it places an advantage on the so-called mid-major schools because you can get players that'll stay longer. And that's the thing that makes things so difficult. Now, when they start doing the seeding, it's irrelevant right now. Look at the NBA draft. They're saying now that there's a weak draft. Well, the only reason why it's a weak draft is that they've depleted all of the talent out of the mid-major schools. So what happens if I'm out of the so-called major schools? But if I'm at a mid-major, I say to hell with that because people are going to judge me by my record. I'm going to get an older guy. I'm going to get a guy that's going to stay longer, and I'm going to have a better record. So I think these guys are very smart to stay where they are because you see what's happening. Look, the coach of UCLA gets fired. This guy had gone to the Final Four 3 times and has done well. The coach of Minnesota gets fired. I mean, so if I'm those guys, I would say, no, I'm going to go and stay where I'm appreciated.
He's John Thompson, the former Hoyas coach, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. I guess you're trying to look at styles here and why I would stay at a certain place. But if I'm looking at $1.5 million at VCU or $2.5 million at UCLA and everything that goes along with that, I mean, you never thought you would hear somebody at VCU turning down coaching at UCLA. What's it say about UCLA, though?
No, well, and you're 100% right. I mean, I think to an extent, you know, the bad thing about a UCLA situation is that they established the reputation of enormous success, the perception that you are guaranteed to win, and nobody's guaranteed to win anymore. Guys that go there are under enormous amount of pressure based on the ghost of John Wooden. You know, anything you do at VCU, that's attributed to Shaka. So he can stay there and have his success. But these guys make money off of the court. If they win, we talk all we want to about the salary, but they're able to get shoe contracts. They're able to get other endorsements for winning. You go to UCLA, they can't pay you enough money to lose, and unreasonable expectations are placed on you at that place.
What's your reaction when you hear the comparisons or people trying to make arguments with Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant? Where do you stand on assessing their talent level?
Well, I think you have to assess people in eras. I don't think that these guys function under the same sets of circumstances, and all of them are great. But in Michael's era, and I sort of experienced a lot of that. I tell the boy every time I talk to Michael that I gave him his reputation when he hit that damn jump shot against me. They used to call him Michael Jordan. After he hit the jump shot, they start calling him Mike. But in that era, I think that there were a different set of rules, and I heard you when I came on alluding to how games are officiated. Well, now, hell, if you touch somebody, they call a foul. Those times, those guys were pushing and shoving. Look at Bill Russell. Very seldom when you hear people talk about the greatest players ever, is his name mentioned anymore. The man had 11 championship rings. But in eras, you have to evaluate these guys. Kobe is great in his era. LeBron James' era is still going to go on longer and longer. But I'm a Michael Jordan man right now. I'm going to tell you that.
Where are all the college centers, Coach?
Going the way of the Buffalo. Don't anybody want to play in that damn anymore. You know that as well as I do. Everybody has a European game now. When you look at these guys, they all want to go out and on the perimeter and shoot jump shots, and everybody's trying to convince them that if they do that, that's the way to play. But if you get a good center, look at the kid Plumlee. That's one of the things I like about him, and I said that to him when I did his last game, is that I like the fact that he's not afraid to stay on the block and take that beating. But everybody talks about when guys run around outside how great they are. That's where the problem is. Nobody wants to stay in there no more. Everybody wants to dribble, run around, and pass, and the things you saw in the past, you don't see guys doing.
Who do you got in the finals?
Don't ask me that. Well, in the beginning, I thought Miami, but every day I change. Every time somebody asks me, and that's indicative of seeing what's going on in the tournament. You know what I mean? I like Miami. I liked them in the beginning, but you can look, Indiana, it can be a problem. I think anybody who's playing well, everybody talks about Louisville, and I think Louisville's style. You talked about style.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of the few teams that still press and put pressure on you for the entire court. But if I were to pick somebody off the top of my head with my non-expert opinion, I would say Miami.
Great to visit with you again, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, buddy. Take care now. I enjoy your show immensely.
All right. John Thompson, former Georgetown head coach.